go.
Iron base. A person may take a hammer with which to crack nuts, or a hatchet with which to cut a cake or press figs, a saw with which to slice cheese, a shovel with which to scoop up dried figs, a winnowing shovel or a pitchfork on which to put something for a child, a spindle over a weaver's reed, which has which with which to spear fruit, and a hand needle with which to take out a thorn, or a sack maker's needle with which to open a door. A cane for olives, if there is a knot at its end, is susceptible to tumor contamination, and if not, it is not susceptible to tumor contamination. In either case, it may be taken on Shabbos. Rabbi Yossi says all utensils may be taken except for a large saw and a coulter, and all utensils may be taken either out of necessity or not out of necessity. The Mishna says they may not be taken except out of necessity. Okay.
All right. Kol hakelim hanitalim b'Shabbos shivreihem nitalim imahin. Now, interesting phrasing over here that we're talking about. Okay, so things that are non-muktzas, bowls,
Mhm.
knives, stuff like that. Okay, so anything that didn't start a kli that's not muktzah, if it gets broken on Shabbos, the pieces do not become muktzah. They can still be picked up. Now that word imahim, with them, is probably a vestige of copying from Mishnah Aleph, where it says kol hakelim nitalim b'Shabbos v'dal soseim imahim.
Right.
It makes sense to talk about the doors coming with the kalim. But in our case, when it's talking about the broken pieces, it's not imahim. Obviously, once the thing's broken, there's no imahim. There's no with them to be picked
Right.
up. So a lot of people say that imahim should actually be deleted. Uh,
I would think first thought to me it would be they would be most of the pieces. They have no use for them. There's nothing
but
you can
so you
do.
would have thought so, but no, they're not, because if they can
Right.
still be used, ubilvad sheyu osim me'en melacha, they just must be useful for some purpose.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If they're broken to the point where they're no longer useful, then okay, then they become muktzah. But if you can still use them for some purpose,
Mhm.
and we'll see the example given in the Mishnah. Shiv
Right.
areva lechasas bahen es piachavis. Okay, so you got a big mixing bowl and it got broken, but you've got enough size on the piece to use it as a cover for
Something else. Right.
a bottle or flask. Shivres chuchis lechasas bahen es piapach, or even a piece of glass to cover the mouth
Glass.
of a
Yeah.
flask. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda is more machmir. He says, "Bilvad you osin me'ein melachtan." It must be similar to the kind of melacha that they used to do, right?
Mhm.
Shivrei ariva letzuk lesochan mikpa. So if it was a bowl, it must be used to contain stuff. So if you've got a bowl, it's enough that you could scoop up some porridge with it and use it as a kind of a spoon, I guess. Or v'shel zchuchis letzuk lahin lesochan shemen. So in other words, he's not happy about using the shard of a
Right.
container to use as a lid. Okay,
Right.
so the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda here.
We did have this in several other Mishnahs where you could use something broke and you could use a piece of it to do something else. I don't remember where it was, but I
This
remember where we did have it
this
sometime.
Mishnah. It's this Mishnah that you're thinking of, I'm
Just
pretty
this one? I thought it was the other parts. Okay. All right. At least I remember it.
yeah, no, that's great. That's what we're trying to do with all of the repetition, because
Right.
you keep going over the Mishnayos and you know they become familiar, and you remember this. Oh, hang on a second, I've learned this before. Good. Okay.
That did happen to me a few days ago when we had a shear, and
Yeah.
there was something I forget now, I forgot what it was, but it was something I said, oh, there's a mission that says,
Yeah. Yeah.
felt good
Exactly.
that I was able to
That,
say
that
that.
that's the kind of expertise, and it makes such a difference when you're learning Gemara. And
Mhm.
you see somebody say something in the Gemara, and you say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Excuse me, I know a Mishnah that says exactly the opposite of what you're saying." And then the next thing in the Mishnah is "V'hatanan," and there's my Mishnah that is, yeah, yeah, I knew that
Right,
one.
right. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Mishnah Vav. Ha'evan shebekeruya. Okay, so you've got a gourd. Now, this is a hollowed out, dried out gourd, which somebody is using as a bucket to draw water from the well. Okay. Now, the thing with the gourd is it's wood, and wood floats in water. So it's not very fit for purpose unless it's got a weight in it. So what do you do as a weight? You pick up a stone, use a stone to weigh it down so that it will submerge in the water and you can then pull it up. But the problem with stones on Shabbos is that they're muktzah. So what happens if you've got a stone inside this gourd? Im memal'in ba ve'eina nofeles. If it's been secured to the bottom of the gourd to the extent that
Right.
if that when the water comes in, it doesn't fall out. Okay, so then what have you got? You've got a weight that's built into a bucket, which is a mutar use on Shabbos, and the rock has already been officially designated as a weight for the good. Memalinba, no problem. This is exactly fit for purpose, designed to be used the way it's used. Vim lav ein memalinba, but if it falls out, then this is just a rock that was in a gourd, and the rock is muktzah. And not only that, but the gourd itself becomes muktzah as a basis, because it started out Shabbos as a base for the rock. Zmora shik shura b'tafiach. He has a stick that is tied to a little bucket, or it's like a tafiach is like a little bucket of cheres, which also is used for drawing water from a well. So now the stick is there to help you to lower it into the water and pull it out. So if the stick is tied to the bucket, Mamalin Bava Shabbos, then that's fine. But if it's not tied, now we're not going to allow you to fill up with it. Now this Kati explains that even if it was designated before Shabbos, but it's not secured, the problem is that you might find that the stick is actually too long, it doesn't fit nicely or something like that. And then what a person might do when he's not thinking is he might snap off a couple of branches to make it the right size. And there, the problem is it's already a detached stick. It's not for tolesh or mizamer or any of those agricultural things, but it's a makeva patish. It's
Okay.
tikkun kli that you're doing on this, and that would be asmid. Yeah. Pekaka chalon. All right. A window. Um, if you have
It's
a
just a window shutter.
window shutter. Okay. So now we think of window shutters as things that are attached to the windows, but sometimes, we're thinking in modern terms, what you might very often have in old times is just simply a board that you pick up and put down, pick
Put
up and
over
put
there.
down. Okay. And Rabbi Eliezer doesn't like this. He sees it as a form of boneh that you're sticking the thing into the window, unless bizman shehu kashur v'taloi pokikin bo. If it is attached to the window with a string or a rope or a hinge, okay,
No.
such a way that even when it's open, it is not touching the ground, then okay, then this is part of the window and you're allowed to open and close with it. But if not, imlav ein pokekin bo, you may not stop up the window with it. Chachamim omrim meh ben kach or ben kach pokekin bo. If it's made as a shutter, this is normal usage. You pick it up, put it in, close it, open it, and just because it's not attached, doesn't make a difference. And Chachamim say that that's mutar, and that is the halacha.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yud Gimel Dalet. Yud Gimel Dalet. The
Hold
minimum.
on. Wait, I think we're on Yud Gimel Gimel. Let me just check
Okay.
that I haven't made a mistake. I think it's Yud Gimel Gimel.
Yud Gimel Gimel. Yud
Gimel,
Gimel
yes.
Gimel.
From the
Really?
Chamaso, one that tears in his anger.
Yeah. Why did I do that for? Oh. One who tears in his anger for his dead, and all act destructively are exempt. But one who destroys to order to repair his minimum measure for liability is the same as for repairs. The minimum measure for liability of one who witnesses, whitens, combs, dyes, or spins is double the width of a sit, and one who weaves two threads, his minimum measure for liability is a full sit. Rabbi Yehuda says one who traps a bird by driving it into a closet or a deer into a house is liable, but the Chachamim say one is liable for driving a bird into a closet or a deer into a house, a courtyard, or vivarium. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says if not all vivara are alike, this is the rule. If it requires further trapping, one's exempt. If it does not require further trapping, one is liable. Okay. And Purim. Okay, Gimel Vav. While the basket was still on his shoulder, he read from, I profess this day to the Lord your God until the end of the passage. Rabbi Yehuda says, until a wandering Aramean was my father. When he reached, I'm sorry, was my father. When he reached the wandering Aramean was his father, he took down the basket from his shoulder, held it by its rim, and the priest placed his hand underneath it and waved it and read from, a wandering Aramean was my father until the end of the passage, and placed it by the side of the altar, and he prostrated himself and went out. The pigeons which were on the baskets were burnt offerings, and what they had in their hand they gave to the priests.
You just went backwards.
You're right, I did.
Mhm.
Oh gosh. Okay. Originally, anyone who knew how to recite recited, and whoever did not know how to recite, they read it to him. When they refrained from bringing, they ordained that it should be read to both those who knew and to those who did not know. The rich brought the Bikurim in silver and golden baskets, and the poor brought them in wicker baskets of peeled willow branches, and the baskets and the Bikurim were given to the priests. Okay.
Vamos.
And, okay. Dollar dollar. If one says to a Jason, go and set aside truma, he must separate according to the owner's mind. If he does not know the owner's mind, he separates according to the average person, 1/50th. If he gave 10 less or 10 more, his truma is truma, and if he intentionally added even one, his truma is not truma. If one wishes to give more truma, Rebbe Eliezer says 1/10, as in the case of truma maisa. If more than this, he should make a truma maisa for another place. Rabbi Ishmael says half chulin and half truma. Tarfin and Rabbi Yehuda say as long as he retains a part of chulin. At three times, there's one to measure the baskets. At the time of the first ripe fruits, at the time of the late summer fruits, in the middle of the summer. He who counts is praiseworthy, and he who measures is more praiseworthy, and he who weighs is the most praiseworthy of all the three. Right. The Taharos. Okay. Tes Aleph. If one lives together with an Amaretz in a courtyard, and he forgot utensils in the courtyard, even sealed earthenware barrels or a sealed earthenware oven, these are tameh. Rabbi Yehuda rules the oven tahor when it is sealed. And Rabbi Yossi says even the oven is tameh until he makes a partition for it that is 10 fucking high. If one deposits utensils within Am Aretz, they become tameh with corpse truma, and they become tameh with midras. If he knows that they eat truma and they are tahor from corpse truma, but they are tameh through midras, Rabbi Yossi says if he gave him a chest full of clothes, when the lid presses down on the clothes, they become tameh midras, and if the lid does not press down on the clothes, they become tameh with a light truma, even if the key is in the owner's hand. If one loses an object during the day and finds it the same day, it is tahor. And during the day, and he found it during the night, and he found it during the day, and he found it on the following day, it is tameh. This is the rule. Whenever the entire night or part of the night passes over it, it is tameh. If one spreads out clothes in the public domain, they are tahor. In the private domain, they are tameh. If he was watching them, they are tahor. And if they fell, and if they fell, and he went to bring them, they are tameh. If his bucket fell into a well of Amaretz, and he went to bring something with it to raise it, it is tameh, since it was left in the domain of the Amaretz for a short time.
Okay.
And Malachos. Yud Aleph. Reb Mishmael says the Omer was brought on the Sabbath from 3 Sah, and on a weekday from 5. And the comments say whether on the Sabbath or a weekday it came from 3. The Chanina, the administrator of the Kohanim, says on the Sabbath it was reaped by an individual with one sickle, and in one basket on a weekday by 3, in 3 baskets with 3 sickles. But the comments say whether on Shabbos or on a weekdays it was done by 3 people with 3 baskets and 3 sickles. The mitzvah of the Omer is that it comes from the closest field. If that which is closest to Yerushalayim did not ripen, we may bring it from any place. It once occurred that it came from Kiko to Zirim, the Tzfirfim, and the Shtei Lechem come from the Ed Shacha Valley. How did they do it? The court agents would go out on the eve of the festival and make it into bundles while it was attached to the ground, so it would be easier to reap. All the towns nearby would gather so that they should be reaped with great ceremony. As soon as it became dark, it would say to them, the sun is set, and they would say yes. And then as the sun set, and they would say yes. This sickle, they would say yes. This sickle, and they would say yes. This basket, and they would say yes. This basket, and they would say yes. On Shabbat, he would say to them, this Sabbath, and they would say yes. This Sabbath. And they would say, yes, shall I weep? And he would say, reap. And shall I reap? And they would say to him, reap. 3 times for each item, and they would say to him, yes, yes, yes. Why was all this necessary? Because of the Batsum, who said that the Omer is not reaped on Moshe Shabbos. They would reap it and place it in baskets and
We're
bring it to
done.
the
We're
temple.
done.
That was done? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. Notice you said that 3 times that we're done. Okay,
I
Nadar.
love that. I love that particular mission. It always reminds me of like getting the crowd all riled up. Yeah,
Right, all right.
yeah, let's go. And like once he does it, and everyone starts chanting, "Anachnu mamim, lo mamim."
First, I used to say there are three women whose domain must be divorced, that they can take the kasuba. The one who says, I am unclean to you, or the heaven is between me and you, or I remove from all Jews. They later retracted this so that a wife should not set her eyes upon another man and behave immorally to her husband. Rather, the one who says, I am unclean to you, must prove it. Heaven is between me and you, they should plead with her. I am removed from all Jews, he should revoke his share, so that she can continue in marital relations with him, but she is removed from other Jews.
Uh, the
Najma
last one, yeah, what's the Nazarian?
we are
Nazir.
Nazir. Okay, Aleph. All equivalent terms used in Naziris are like Naziris. One who says, I will be is a Nazir, or I will be handsome is a Nazir. Not sick, not sayak, but sayak is a Nazir. One who says, I am like this one, I have to stroke my hair, I want to let my hair grow. It is an obligation upon me to let my hair grow long. He is a Nazir. If he says it is an obligation upon me to offer birds, Rebbeinu says he is a Nazir, but the comments say he is not a Nazir. One who says, I'm a Nazir from grape suits or from grape skins or from haircuts or from tumor, he is a Nazir, and all the details of Naziris apply to him. One who says, I am like Shimshon, like the son of Manach, like the husband of Delilah, like him who they tore out the gates of Gaza, like him, the Philistine gouged out his eyes, he is Samsonite Nazir. What is the difference between a permanent Nazir and some Samsonite Nazir? Permanent Nazir, if his hair grows heavy, he will lighten it with a razor and bring three animals. And if he becomes tummy, he brings a sacrifice for tumor. A Samsonite Nazir, if his hair grows heavy, he may not lighten it, and he may become tummy, but he does not bring the sacrifice for tumor.
Okay.
Okay,
And we
good. Hey, have a good day. I hope your wife
do.
has a continued Push Lema. Everything
I
should
know.
go well.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
okay, be well. Thank you. Bye.